Today, you and I are going to uncover the reason why personal growth is lonely and how to find your tribe of like-minded people that you can grow with. This is probably one of the biggest reasons why people don't grow in their life and what to do about it instead, so that this illusion won't hold you back in your life any longer. This is a very important topic. You know, you and I are the average of the top 5 people we spent the most time with. And we hear that a lot. And so we know that the people around us don't necessarily grow much. And we know that the vast majority of people actually never improve much from where they're at. So if you just sort of follow along and go along with the people around you, your results will be the average of that. And the odds are stacked against us. Whereas if the reverse was the case, if people around us, the vast majority of people, lived better, richer, and more fulfilling lives, well, the odds would be great for you to get the same if you sort of just followed along. But that is not the case. That has never been the case. And this is not an easy topic to actually integrate in your life. So today I'm going to walk you through all the steps that I have used to improve this and to radically change my results with it. For us to start getting better results and for us to acknowledge and become aware of how much power the environment has over us, we have to understand, first of all, who we are and who our friends are as it relates to results and growth. And we can judge them. That's not our job, but we have to become aware of their influence in the world or the lack of it. So it can be very isolating. Personal growth can feel lonely, especially in the beginning when you're surrounded by people and friends and family who do not share your vision and your growth mindset. So that's probably the hardest part, you know, in the beginning, at least when you start on this. One time I remember I was going to a celebration of a friend of mine, and some of my old friends were there, friends I hadn't seen for a long time. And when I shared what I was doing at the time, I had left Denmark, and these were some of the friends from Denmark. And so when they asked me what I was doing now, and I told them I was doing shows on cruise ships, I was traveling the world, I was having a great time, I had started working on myself, I remember how quiet it got at the table. And I remember several of them got up from the table and never returned. And I felt like I'd lost all of my friends in that moment. But what I realized was, in hindsight, they were just so not in harmony with the person that I had become. I used to be that complainer that always looked negatively at things, and that was the person they were used to. They just did not resonate with the new frequency I was on, and you might find the same to be true in your life. The moment you start growing and expanding your mind and making shifts in your life, there will be people around you that embrace it and love you for it, and there will be some people that just don't. So I want to encourage you to reflect on this quote that I heard from Earl Nightingale. He says, "The opposite of courage in society isn't cowardice, it is conformity." That means, in his point of view, the opposite of courage isn't to be a coward, it's to follow along with the people around you. And it takes courage to stay there at the table when everybody left, and sort of just sticking to your guns and sticking to what you believe in is the right thing to do. That's not easy. That can feel very lonely in the moment, but it's absolutely necessary. So who are your closest friends and family? Who are those people? What are their values and where are they headed in life? Do they have goals? Do they talk about infinite potential? Do they talk about the great quantum leap goals that they want to achieve? Do they encourage you to do the same thing? Or do they sort of hold back? Do they criticize a little bit? Do you hear from other people how they're talking about you behind your back? So you have to ask yourself, do the people around you, the top 10 people you spent the most time with, do they align with your growth journey? Do they actually share the same kind of values? Don't judge. That's not your job. Just observe them objectively. That's all you have to do. And then what I would encourage you to do is create what I call alignment chart. So what you want to do is take a piece of paper with 2 columns. In one column, you write your goals, where you're going in life, and in the other column, you write my circle's goals. So the goals of the people around you. Are they aligned? Is there harmony between where your environment is going and where you're going? And if you don't know what the goals are of the people around you, Well, that's the first alarm bell going off, because if you don't know where they're going, you might want to rethink the advice you get from them, at least, and the time you spent with them. So more about that later. So when it comes to you and your environment, the first step is to have some self-awareness about your environment and yourself, your goals versus the goals of the people in your closest circle of influence. Because if you don't have that, there's a big likelihood that you will become a follower who just is very busy following the follower, following the people around you, who's busy following people around them. It's the dog that bites its own tail, and most people are stuck there. So that's the first step, is you and your environment. If you don't integrate this, you'll become another follower. If you do integrate this, you will become a leader in your own life, and you will attract other people that are doing the exact same thing. And so the next step is to evaluate the three groups of people in your life. This is a process I've used myself for a long time. And there are three groups of people in everyone's life. There's one, the family and good old friends. Two, there are the like-minded people that are also studying themselves, growing, moving along in life towards goals that they consider worthy of them. And three, there are our coaches and mentors and people that are beyond where we are at, but people that have the possibility to add tremendous value to our life. So three groups of people: friends, family, like-minded people, and our mentors. And you get something from all of them. There's value in all those three groups. So I have a small group of friends that I see. We meet every week, usually every Sunday for brunch, and we laugh and we share silly stories and we uplift each other. And then I have like-minded people, my accountability partners, people that I study with, that I grow alongside, that hold me to high standards with my own personal development, and vice versa. I hold them to a high standard. And then I have my mentors and coaches and people that see something in me that I cannot see yet. And those are the three groups of people in your life. So who are they and how do they affect your growth? Who uplifts you? Who might drain you? And who sort of is in between, the neutral? Like, you want to start asking those questions and then do a connection audit. So first you did a goal calibration audit. Now you do a connection audit, right? There are certain people in your first group, friends and family, that you have to spend less time with. They're the good old friends, and all they talk about are the good old days. Don't spend too much time with them. It's not healthy. All they do is look in the rear view mirror. They just look backwards in life, most of those people. Two, the group that are like-minded, that are also studying themselves, that are working on their goals in life. Spend more time with those people, contribute more to that group, set up a mastermind group, reach out to somebody that you believe would be of like mind with you, somebody that shares values and direction in life. And three, your coaches and your mentors. Those are the people you would ask more questions to. So it's not the time that you spend with the third group that matters. It's the intensity by which you approach that time. So as an example, I remember when I was meeting for breakfast with my good friend Bob Proctor at the time, I would always come prepared with a huge list of questions to ask him. And sometimes we would be done with breakfast in an hour. But I had gotten answers to all these questions. It would just be like rapid fire back and forth, very, very intense energy. Friends and family, sometimes that's where you sort of relax, laugh, but spend less time with those people. Reclaim a little bit of that time. More time with group two, and it's not the time that you spent with group three that matters, it's the intensity of the time. So without clarity and priority of these relationships, you might find yourself staying stuck in old patterns where you sort of perpetuate the same cycle year after year and your results don't change much. So here's the key. Because you become like your environment, your job is to question your environment. Your job is to change your environment. Because we become like the people we're surrounded by, all you have to do is change those people. Then you become like them. It's such a simple equation, and it's so not easy. Why is it not easy? Because you're up against a lot of paradigms in yourself and in your environment. We'll dig into that in a minute and how to overcome that. But I think it's really important we first realize, who are those people? Who are the friends and family that just sit and talk about nothing or good old days? Who are the like-minded people that are just as serious about their own studies as you are, their own development? And who are those coaches and mentors and people who are where we want to be? Who are they in your life? Make those three differentiations in your environment. That'll be very, very valuable to you. And if you don't have clarity, like I said, on these relationships, there's a likelihood that you will stay stuck Did you know there's a certain kind of shark? If you put it in an aquarium, it will become like 8 inches, like about this. If you put it in the ocean, it becomes 8 feet. Same shark, change its environment and it grows accordingly. Well, since that's nature and you're part of nature, why would you be any different? It's the same thing. So you grow proportionally to your environment. Change your environment, change your growth. Okay? You will encounter people who are not up for the change that you're imposing on them. And this is the key. People don't resist change if it's their choice, but they resist being changed. What does that mean? Because you're changing, you are forcing a change upon them. They have to get used to the new version of you. That wasn't their choice. They will say and do whatever they have to say and do to get you to forget it. That's not because they're bad people. They just don't want the change that you're forcing on them. They didn't choose that change. You chose that change. They have to get used to it. So that can potentially lead to some resistance in your environment. So how do you handle that? How you handle it really defines your growth long term. So this is not easy. I remember back in the day, this was about 2016, I had a very close family member. She was very dear to my heart. I loved her. She was like a second mom to me. But I also recognized how I let myself affect in a negative way by her own fears, her frustrations in life. I took that on me. And I started to recognize how unhealthy it was. I was running around with a permanent stomach ache and I didn't know where that came from until I realized it. I let it happen because I was around a person who sort of exuded a lot of frustration and fear in her life. So I made a decision to actually spend less time with that person, significantly less time. And because I did that, I believe I released myself to a higher frequency because a few months later, I met one of my mentors, Bob Proctor. We met in person, and I believe I attracted him into my life. I had made a decision I was going to work with the best in the world in personal development, and here I am running into the man. I mean, that wasn't an accident, but I don't believe that would have happened if I had allowed myself to stay in that energy. All right. So, who are those people? Do you have people in your life that may criticize your growth, that may frown, look down upon what you're doing, or that just unconsciously transfer a lot of bad energy to you, as was the case with my family member? So, who's that person in your life, or who are they in your life? It's not their fault. You can't blame them. They are who they are. But we get more of what we tolerate in life. So, if you keep tolerating fear imposed on you or negative energy and influence from your environment, well, guess what? You cannot expect more than what you have today. So, that leads us to a technique I would encourage you to integrate. And it's a 3-step technique to identify and maintain boundaries, because you need boundaries in order to grow. If you are that doormat that everybody can push around and impose their agendas upon, you will not grow. That's not going to happen, because their agendas become your agenda. And so there's no space left to grow in. So there's 3 steps here that I've used over the years, and it's identify, it's communicate, and it's maintained. So first, you want to identify the boundary that you're going to be setting. So let's say in the case of my family member back then, that was an emotional boundary. Either it's a mental boundary where you're being imposed with ideas that are not serving you. 2, it could be an emotional boundary, like people are in an emotional state that is not serving you and you need to put up an emotional boundary. Or 3, God forbid, it's a physical boundary. They do something to you they shouldn't be doing. All right. It's usually a mental boundary or an emotional boundary. And so it has to be identified first. And then it has to be communicated. All right. You have to communicate the boundary. This is where the boundary goes and no further. So next time, for instance, that they call, ask you to do something, or impose their agenda on you, a good response would be, I respect your position and I respect your agenda, but I choose to now prioritize me, my self-care, this or that has to do with my own growth. So I respect your position, I respect this, but, and then you let them know your new priorities. That's communicating the boundary. The 3rd step in the boundary process is to maintain the boundary. And what does that mean? Back to the point from earlier, when you start changing, you are imposing a change on your environment. They have to get used to the new version of you, and they're going to resist that. They're going to test the boundary. They're going to do whatever they can, say whatever they have to say to get you to forget it. It's not that they're bad people. but they just don't want the change that you're forcing on them. So you'll have to get used to maybe saying the same thing over and over and over again until the boundary has been established and maintained long enough for it to become the new normal. And you know what happens? This is very interesting. I've seen it in my own life. Once you start setting the boundaries, people actually start respecting you and appreciating you so much more. Because when you choose to be with them and spend time with them, they know it's a choice that you make consciously to be with them. They don't take you for granted anymore. They actually appreciate you so much more because they know it's something you choose to do. All right. So that's a really important point here. And so it has to do with letting go of as well, letting go of an old version, an old model, old associations in favor of new ones. Because if your life is full, there's no space for better. Better can't find its way to you. And that leads us to the next step here. How do you find like-minded people? Where do they come from? I hear that all the time. One of our community members the other day said, well, where do I find these great like-minded people? One thing is for sure, the loneliness of growth fades when you intentionally seek out and build a tribe around you of community of like-minded people that are thinking along the same vein. And so over the course of my journey, when I look back, all the events that I attended, all the masterminds, all the programs, I met people at those events and they were of like minds. I remember the first events I attended in personal development. I met my first reading partner there and he later became my business partner and we created great things together and we continue to do so, in fact. And my now current accountability partner, Peggy, she was the one I met at that first event. We're still accountability partners today, so many years later. That's not an accident. So what we find as well at our Real Magic Live events, people meet each other, they're on the same frequency. And so I've seen people form long-term relationships. I've seen people attract their business partners, their mastermind partners, accountability partners. That's really where it's at. So where can you find people who inspire you and share your growth values? What are the mechanisms? Who are the ones who have the results that you want? And make sure, because there are a lot of talkers out there, there's not a whole lot of people that actually do and apply and create. A lot of people yap away and they talk about all the great things they're going to be doing, but they never do it. It's just talk. It's noise. It's words. That's all it is. There's no awareness there. There's no intent there. It's all just, it's not valuable in my opinion. So you want to look at their results and you want to make sure that you join whatever they put up, events, masterminds, community opportunities, anything you can get your hands on. It's time worth spent in those, energy groups. So research and join one new group, one new network, or one community this week. Just make a decision. You're going to do some research this week. And it's close to Christmas. I don't think I have time. Well, therein lies the problem. You're not your own priority. It can be an online, it can be offline. Start small. It could be a BNI group for sort of just like-minded entrepreneurs, or it could be a mastermind for intensive mindset work. The right tribe will amplify your growth and it will keep you accountable to your goals, which is what most people are not. They're not accountable. The last step in the process, how do you move forward? You have to recognize that growth is a journey. It's not a destination. It's growth for the rest of your life. These processes are not something you use once or twice. You review them, you go through them maybe once a month, at least once a quarter. And so you should always be studying, you should always be growing, you should always look at yourself as your biggest investment. When you look at your calendar and you look at your bank account, that will reveal to you what your priorities have been this year. And then you say, well, this year was not a regular year. Yes, it was. This year was the average of all the other years because it's your programming and your subjective mind that controls you. So look at your calendar, look at your bank account. That will reveal to you who your biggest asset is. Is it you? When you look at my bank account and my calendar, you will see that I always invest in myself. I always attend stuff that can expand my mind. I'm always studying and I'm always growing. So what's one action you will be taking today that will align yourself with your goals to help you find the right people? So here's an action plan for you. Here are 3 things you could do. 1, identify who uplifts you and spend more time with those people. 2, communicate strong and clear boundaries to the people around you, especially the ones that you let yourself be influenced by. That is not very positive. And 3, seek out at least one new growth-focused community or event or mastermind this week. And you have to realize that consistency is key. When you surround yourself with the right people and they are consistent and results oriented, you will become one. I'm very consistent. My daily accountability partner, Peggy, and we probably missed 2-3 days out of many years of accountability. It's every day. It's not some days. It's every day. Sometimes a little later in the day, sometimes a little earlier, but it happens every day. All right. Don't debate yourself with this. This is too important. So I would encourage you to reflect on what you've learned here. Don't just treat it as another YouTube video and then you're onwards to the next, right? Actually go back and re-listen to this multiple times. Integrate it. Just take one action step. Just do one thing different. The opposite of courage in society isn't cowardice, it is conformity. Remember that. Play with that idea for the next many years as you're making decisions with your environment. Change your environment, you change your results because you're the average of the top 5 people you spend the most time with. Thank you so much for watching this video. I have linked to a couple more right here that I think you would like. Now, until next time, it's not who you are that holds you back, it's all the illusions of who you think you're not. This is Hansen. Thank you.